Lord of the Mysteries. Chapter 390. Anticipation. On Sunday morning, shortly after Klein finished his breakfast, he heard the doorbell ring as he had expected. But to his surprise, it wasn't just reporter Mike Joseph. Dr. Aaron was with him as well. "Sherlock, I had that nightmare again last night. I don't think it's normal." Aaron didn't keep matters a secret even with Mike around, revealing it the moment he entered the living room. Without waiting for Klein's reply, he took out his wallet and took out a paper crane. "Do you think this is the problem? Ever since I found it and started to carry it with me, I've been having nightmares." Klein nonchalantly glanced at it when his expression froze suddenly. If he hadn't been a clown in the past and had great control over his facial muscles, then he might have revealed an undisguised smile in front of the reporter and doctor. Yes, a smile. This paper crane is even uglier than the one I made." This was the first thought that came to Klein's mind. At that moment, he had the urge to cover his face and sigh. Could having poor handicraft skills be a tradition of the Nighthawks? There was no doubt that the paper crane in front of him was the result of another switch. After receiving accurate information from Klein, the Nighthawks had seemingly sneaked into Dr. Aaron's bedroom without any delay and switched their folded paper crane for the one in his wallet. But what they didn't expect was that the one in the wallet was also a fake. It was folded by Klein above the gray fog and appeared rather crude. "I feel an inexplicable sense of joy." Klein glanced at Dr. Aaron, who didn't notice it, cleared his throat, and said, "Perhaps. I suggest that you go to the cathedral again and talk to the bishop you previously talked to. We need to believe that the gods that we believe in are always watching over us." As he spoke, he drew a triangular sacred emblem on his chest. After the nightmare had left last night, Klein had specifically gone above the gray fog to divine if it was dangerous having switched the paper crane. The result was that it was very safe. Thus, he was now able to make this suggestion with great interest, in an attempt to tease his former colleagues. I wonder how they would feel seeing the paper crane that they didn't fold very well returned to them. Klein placated Dr. Aaron in all seriousness and turned to the reporter and said with a smile, "Mike, to tell the truth, what I really want to advise Aaron to do is to go see a psychiatrist, but faith can certainly soothe his soul." "You're not being frank at all." Mike laughed. "All right, let's go." The next day, Klein accompanied the Daily Observer reporter into East Borough to interview the rescued girls. With a full £1 as payment for the interview, no one refused it, not even some of the abused girls. In this interview, Captain's sin was the main focus. The current situation of the girls was another main focus. The former made people angry, while the latter left people feeling heavy. Daisy was actually lucky enough to be able to return to work when she got home, and use her labor to barter for food. Less than a third of those who were rescued were like her, and most of them were the kinds with some savings at home, and they were in a position that allowed the traumatized women to heal and have time before they sought out suitable jobs. As for the other 2/3 of those rescued, they had to continue working hard in order to survive. And in the face of the mass unemployment of textile workers, they were often only able to find temporary jobs with low wages. Those with parents and siblings who hadn't lost their jobs were still okay. At least, they were able to help each other, barely filling their stomachs. The families in less optimistic situations had already begun to walk the path of street girls, as though they had never been rescued. Their act of betraying their bodies once was perhaps only for some food. This caused Mike to turn silent like before, and it was only when it was dark and once he left East Borough before his spirit returned. He thanked Klein. "Sherlock, it's all thanks to you. Otherwise, I definitely would have been blackmailed today by those rogue gangsters. Isn't that why you hired me?" Klein smiled politely without any complacency. With old Kohler informing them beforehand, old Kohler and Liv's family hadn't revealed that he had helped search for Daisy for free. Especially when Daisy, who was pretty smart, was asked if she knew any relatively special people, she answered directly, "Mr. Reporter and Mr. Detective." Mike nodded sluggishly and walked on in silence for a long time. Before he boarded the carriage, he suddenly let out a sigh. I would like to make a call in this report for the government to use Capham's estate to set up a bursary fund, which will use the annual income to help the rescued girls and others who have been harmed by Capham to get them out of their predicament. Although Capham's safe had already been robbed clean by the hero bandit, his greatest wealth is the property he bought. These should have all been obtained illegally. Klein listened carefully, gave Mike a deep look, and said in sincere praise, "You're the best reporter I've ever met. There are plenty of reporters like me. There are always idealists in the world." Mike sighed. With that, he paid £10 to Klein and took off his hat and waved it. As he watched the reporter get into the rental carriage, Klein was about to take a public carriage in the other direction when Mike suddenly opened the window and asked with a gibing smile, "Sherlock, I'm not the only reporter you know, am I?" Klein was stunned for a moment, then he laughed. "Guess. City of Silver." Like a trapped beast, Derek Berg paced around the room in anxiety. He felt that the chief wasn't paying enough attention to his report. He was worried that the exploratory team members, who had been affected by the fallen creator to an unknown extent, would cause devastating damage to this city that had lasted for 2,582 years in the darkness after their quarantine. In such a situation, he was eager to obtain advice from Mr. Hangman, Miss Justice, and company, who were rather familiar with the fallen creator. This was the tarot gathering he anticipated the most. Wait a little while longer. Just wait a little longer. If Mr. Fool doesn't summon me, I will pray directly to him. Derek tried to calm himself down, but his pacing didn't slow down one bit. Suddenly, he saw the endless gray fog and heard the messianic voice say, "Prepare for the gathering." With a sigh of relief, Derek sat down on the edge of the bed carefully and lay down, pretending to be ready to sleep due to exhaustion. After silently counting 1,000 rapid heartbeats, he waited for a while before he was engulfed by the illusory dark red light. At that moment, Derek's room was abnormally quiet. Lightning streaked across the sky outside his window, keeping the darkness away from the land. Suddenly, by the corner of his bed, a black figure squirmed and extended, taking the shape of a human. The dark figure quickly grew tall and quietly looked down at Derek. He carefully observed him for nearly a minute, then withdrew without gleaning anything. In the corner, the shadows remained the same, unchanging. The endless gray fog lingered beneath his feet as usual. The long bronze table in front of him was mottled with green rust, but it didn't seem to be rotten at all. The first things that Derek saw were Miss Justice and Miss Magician sitting opposite him. The familiar, jovial greeting sounded in his ear. "Good afternoon, Mr. Fool, good afternoon." Klein, shrouded in gray fog, nodded slightly. He seemed to respond leisurely to Miss Justice and the other members' greetings, but in reality, he was busy manipulating the world, making him appear like a real person. After yesterday's interviews with reporter Mike, it was already dinner time. Klein went to a restaurant that served Fenepotter cuisine, and he was so overwhelmed by the spiciness that he voluntarily ordered a cup of desert beer. After eating his fill and returning home, he didn't go out again for the rest of the day. Neither did he study the Book of Secrets, or prepare his own food. That eased the heavy emotions he felt whenever he went to Eastborough. Without realizing it, the afternoon had arrived, and his thoughts shifted to the tarot gathering. After the greetings, Justice, Audrey, restrained her curiosity and excitement, and she was in no hurry to inquire about the truth behind the Capham incident. Mr. Fool might not answer, but how would I know if he wishes to answer if I don't ask? Well, I hope he makes a request of equal value, and I'll do my best to fulfill it. Audrey looked around at the other members and observed the states of the other members. As a telepathist, she very quickly discovered something strange. The son appears very anxious. Did something happen to the previous exploratory team captain? Did he encounter Amon? In addition, Furs is in an indecisive state of wanting to ask but not daring to. She must have seen the papers and guessed from the tarot cards that our tarot club was involved in Capham's death. But she's curious who the Emperor card represents. She seems to be even more in awe of Mr. Fool. What happened? Mr. Hangman seems to be in a very good mood. He's finished digesting his potion, He seems to be anticipating something. Mr. World is still as gloomy and reserved as before, and it's hard to read his thoughts. He really is the nemesis of the spectator pathway. Derek didn't try to hide his anxiety, but he didn't consult the other Tarot Club members directly. He knew perfectly well that the initial time belonged to Mr. Fool, unless there were no so-called Roselle diary entries. There's no need to rush. The gathering has already begun. If Mr. Fool is in a good mood, he might be able to answer some questions. Derek consoled himself. Alger looked up and humbly said, Honorable Mr. Fool, I've found 3 new pages of Roselle's diary. Diary? Roselle's diary? Furs pricked up her ears. Klein smiled and replied, What do you want to exchange them for? Glancing at the card next to Mr. Fool's hand, Alger suppressed his eagerness and said, I want to know what that card you have next to you is.